Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, I just want to say a big thank you to Matt for the virtual gift voucher. Thank you very much, my friend. It is really appreciated. It really is. Now on to today. Today we take a look at the Crimson Fists, and in particular their chapter master, Pedro Kantor, and the event to me that makes Kantor an absolute legend. Spoiler warning to begin. The events we are discussing today are from the Warhammer 40,000 novel Rynn's World by Steve Parker. As always, I really recommend you read the novel for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore. Not only that, but we help to support the great Games Workshop and Black Library, because without them, we don't have this great lore to talk about. I will put a link in the description to the book on the Black Library website as always. And I've got to say, while this is quite an old story now, it's got some really epic moments in it. It really has. You will definitely come out the other side of this story loving the Crimson Fists. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, as I'm sure most of you are aware, Rynn's World takes place during the Orc invasion of the Crimson Fists' homeworld of the same name. And as if in an almost limitless Orc war turning up wasn't bad enough, things quickly go from bad to worse when a stray orbital defense missile hits the chapter's fortress monastery, completely destroying it and wiping out most of the chapter. Now, during the course of the story, Kantor and the small group of surviving 16 Marines have to make it across half a continent infested with orcs to get to New Rynn City. And now, during the course of this perilous journey, Captain Cortez and his squad of 4 Marines are on point, about a kilometre ahead of the main group, when they come across signs of orcs. The stench of human flesh is on the air. Voxing to Kantor of the situation, Cortez informs him he's going to investigate. Kantor agrees, but reminds his captain, reconnaissance protocols only. Do not engage and risk giving away our position. Reaching the top of the rise, Cortez peers through the darkness of the night to see a simple civilian farm. And the orcs are there, at least 30 of them, huge, hulking greenskins. There was a scream, and Cortez turned his eyes left. It seemed the orcs were not quite done with having fun yet. The sound had come from the throat of a woman, perhaps 30 years old, lying in the dirt. She was surrounded by children, 5 of them, of varying ages, and she was hugging them to her hard. "Don't look, my babies. Don't look," she cried at them. Now Cortez saw why. From the other side of the fire, a man emerged into view, walking backwards towards the woman and her children, his arms shaking as he tried to wield an orc blade that was obviously far too heavy for him. Reflected firelight shone on the tear tracks that marked his cheeks. He was obviously retreating from something, and that something now appeared. It was the orc boss, a towering yellow-tusked giant in a long sleeveless coat fashioned from some kind of thick, scaly reptoid skin. On the beast's head there was a helmet boasting 2 straight horns, each over 1 meter in length. From its nose hung a gold ring. From the belt at its waist hung 4 human skulls, seemingly tiny in contrast to its tree-thick legs. The orc moved slowly forward, following the terrified man around the fire. It was unarmed, but that hardly mattered. Even though the farmer bore a blade, he was outmatched in every way. This was a game to the orcs, a sickening, cruel game with only one possible outcome. The orcs are sitting around laughing at the scene, gleefully cheering their boss on as he stalks the man around the fire. The woman screaming for him to just run, just leave them and run. But he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. What kind of man would leave his wife and children? He's not a space marine. He's not genetically enhanced. and equipped with the best armour and weapons known to man. He's just a man. But by God, he'll give his life to protect his family. And that's true bravery. But it's just not enough. And as the orc steps forward, the man lunges with his sword, but it's battered away by the orc boss without effort. Cortez has seen enough and voxes his squad. "We're going in," Cortez told his squad. "Weapons ready." "I thought we were on reconnaissance protocols only, my lord," said Brother Finestra uncertainly. "We were. Now I'm putting you on combat protocols. Lock out all other comm channels except this one, and encrypt it with an alpha-free key. The only voice you need to hear is mine, until I tell you otherwise." He sensed their hesitation. They knew what he was doing. By locking out communication from the chapter master, Cortez was denying Pedro Kantor the chance to issue orders. Orders that would most certainly have him falling back without dispensing the kind of righteous vengeance his soul demanded. Cortez knows he's not doing the tactically sound thing here, but what choice does he really have? To leave this helpless family victims to the orcs? They do as they're told. He knew they would, and with that Cortez issues orders for his men to get moving into place, turning his attention back to the orcs. The woman is screaming as the orc dangles her husband over the fire. And I'm not going to read it, but trust me, it's pretty impactful. The orc boss laughing as the man screams in pain. The woman desperately trying to shield her children from the scene, pleading with them to close their eyes and just not listen. Cortez, filling with a fury, curses his men to move faster. But he knows it's already too late for the man. Finally, the men get into position. Cortez bursts into view with a shot aimed squarely at the boss, exploding his head in a single burst. The man's burnt corpse falls from his hand into the fire. But it's already too late. He's already dead. 4 crimson fists engage the 30 orcs. None of the greenskins survive the night. The story then cuts to Kantor berating Captain Cortez for engaging the orcs. And there's a great line: "You will live by the decisions I make, and in Dawn's name you will abide by them." As harsh as it sounds, Kantor is the chapter master, and as such is thinking of the wider picture. The survival of the chapter, of the world. As far as he knows, this 16 Marines that he has are all that's left of the entire Crimson Fists. He has to make some harsh decisions. Kantor then turns his attention to the woman and her children, watching as she gives them the only water the Marines could spare. He can't help but feel like he's failed them. The responsibility of the Crimson Fists was to protect mankind, and he had failed in that task. Removing his helm to at least try and appear more relatable, he speaks with the woman, asking if they've suffered any wounds before chiding himself mentally. They'd seen their own husband and father burnt alive before them. Their lives had been changed forever. He informs her that they'll be leaving soon. They have far to go, but they'll do what they can for her before they depart. The woman, moving her children away, crawls before Kantor on her knees, begging and pleading on the golden throne itself to not abandon her family. The orcs will be back, and Kantor knows it. But if he takes on this family, where will it end? He needs to get his men to New Rynn City as fast as they can. He grappled with the most human part of himself, fighting to lock it away behind walls of resolve. He needed to crush these feelings of pity. They would do him no good now. The chapter must endure, he told himself, repeating it like a mantra. The chapter must endure. Nothing else comes close. Good intentions will undo us. They will lead to our destruction. If that happens, we might as well have died with the others when the missile hit. It was hard to do, but he stepped back and pulled his boot from under the woman's head. Only now did she look up to him, and her large brown eyes, wet with tears, sought his. "Please, Lord," she cried out. "What hope do we have alone?" Kantor, forcing himself away, turns away from the woman and heads back to his men, before stopping. Looking back over his shoulder, he tells her he won't stop her from trying to follow them. While they can keep up, no greenskin will take them. But that's the best he can do. Tearfully, she rouses her children, preparing them to move. But Kantor knows they won't keep up for long. And slowly but surely, his men will pull ahead and disappear from view. What will she think of her saviors then? And what will he think of himself? Of course, that's exactly what begins to happen. After hours of desperately trying to keep pace with the Crimson Fists, trying to carry her two youngest children by herself, with the elder two by her sides, the family begin to tire. Cortez can't help but respect the woman, not believing how long she'd already lasted, when her body must be on fire with aches and lactic acid just burning all of her muscles. But still, she kept putting one foot after the other, long after any of them expected her to last, until finally she collapses. The elder children desperately pulling at her, trying to help her up. But it's over. She's given everything she has for her children, until she has nothing left. One of the Marines comments it being a good thing, that finally they can now move at speed. But Cortez simply voxes Kantor, who was leading ahead, informing him that the woman is spent, her burden too great, and he offers to grant her the final mercy. He shouldn't have saved her at the farm. It was his mistake. He only postponed the inevitable and prolonged her suffering. He should never have disobeyed Kantor's orders. He sees that mistake now. Kantor orders him to hold and keep the rest of the men moving, before he returns back to Cortez and the family himself. Appearing through the trees in his chipped and dented armor, Cortez can't help but be awed at the sight of him, like a true chapter master. "Come," said the chapter master, and he strode in the direction of the children where they hovered over their mother's unmoving form. The children heard the two massive space marines approaching and, with fear apparent on their faces, took a few nervous steps back, conflicted between feelings of concern for their mother and concern for their own lives. Cortez saw them eyeing his weapons, especially his power fist. He wondered what they were thinking. Did they really believe he would crush them with it? In a universe as cruel as this? Perhaps they did. Come to think of it, what exactly were Pedro's intentions? Did he plan to put the entire brood out of its misery? Kantor crouched at the woman's side and removed his helmet. Cortez tried to read his face, but it betrayed no emotion. "Jeline," said the chapter master, "can you hear me?" The woman's eyes were closed, but her lips parted. Weakly, quietly, she said, "They were so heavy. So heavy." Kantor nodded. "Yes," he said, "but you did well to bring them this far." Reaching out, he lifted the two smallest children away from her and gestured to the older children to take them. They did so, and Kantor turned back to the woman. "The Emperor's mercy," thought Cortez. "You should not have to do this, Pedro. It is my fault. It is my soul that should bear the stain." Before he could communicate this, Kantor spoke. "It is time," he said, and he reached down to the woman with his gauntleted hands. "Time that someone carried you now." As Cortez watched, the chapter master lifted the woman and stood to his full height, cradling her exhausted form in his arms. She looked so small and fragile against his sculpted ceramite chest, little more than a rag doll. Then the chapter master turned to Cortez and said over the link, "Once we are among the trees, they will have a better chance. They are charges of the chapter now, and we cannot abandon them." Oh man, seriously, I'm almost speechless. What an amazing piece of storytelling. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. For all the epic battles and conflicts in the 40k universe, it's these human stories and these human moments that set the 40k lore apart from everything else. Just absolutely awesome. Pedro Kantor has literally got the weight of an entire world on his shoulders, the survival of an entire chapter to worry about, and still he can't leave them behind. He knows, tactically, he can't take them. They will only slow him down, and still he can't leave them behind. Damn, this is where Pedro Kantor becomes a legend to me. Right here. I'd follow that man into battle anytime. Man, what a moment. When Kantor approaches that fallen woman who has given everything to try and save her children, and you think for a moment he's going to have to grant the Emperor's mercy himself, but instead he picks her up. Man, just awesome. How did this guy not get a model upgrade? I mean, come on GW, let's give Kantor some respect. I'm absolutely going to have to get some Crimson Fists myself now. But fear not guys, if you enjoyed this, then there's no way we could discuss Rynn's world with not discussing the absolutely awesome climactic fight at the end. That one we'll be discussing next. But as always guys, what do you think? Are you a fan of Pedro Kantor? Are you a fan of the Crimson Fists? Was he right to save the family, or should he have allowed the final mercy to be given? As always, drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love to read them. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me. It truly does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. If you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.